Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Stand on Guard. We've got a great show for you and a special surprise appearance by your favorite minister when we come back. The ship is sinking. It's a ship of fools, and the fools are going down with the ship, but not before they make absolute bigger fools of themselves. And wait till you see Randy Boissonneau. We'll be right back with more.
Thank you for watching this episode of Stand on Guard and being.
So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need political change. So we are in a very precarious position in this country. We need political change, but we also need the resolve to resist.
Okay, no more technical glitches, I promise you. Thanks for watching. It's Tuesday, August 27th, 2024. We're in the last days of August. Always makes me a little bit melancholy as I see the August go away, but life goes on, doesn't it? We've got a great show for you today, and we're going to talk about the complete delusion in the Liberal cabinet. How real is it? Well, it's difficult to say. Politicians lie through their teeth constantly about reality and about how they really feel. We're going to show some clips, though, about what's going on in the heralded Trudeau cabinet retreat, where, of course, yesterday, I know I didn't get it live, but you did see Justin Trudeau respond to questions about his leadership. And, of course, he just deflected every question, saying, I'm here working for Canadians. We're going to roll up our sleeves. These are challenging times. You know the talking points. And the man is so self-obsessed, such a narcissistic SOB, that he just can't relate the fact that huge numbers of Canadians loathe him. They're sick of his smirking face. They're sick of his talking point. They're sick of him standing up there and looking at everybody like he's just so superior. You know, it is farcical. It's shambolic. This is what Justin Trudeau has become, you know, the very embodiment of the narcissistic politician. And this is what he continues to be. So what's happening? I'm going to save the Randy Boissonneau clip for last, because you won't believe what Boissonneau did at the cabinet retreat. I haven't seen any coverage of this because it was almost like an after the fact insertion into a question and answer session. But of course, yeah, it's top of the news. It's Trudeau. You look at Trudeau, it looks like he's trying to think something here. Great thoughts. And of course, they're all saying, I'm sorry, Trudeau, just cutting back on the temporary foreign worker program and putting some tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles isn't going to do it. That's not enough. You think, how stupid do you think Canadians are? This is the conversation they're having behind closed doors. Yes, I know that. And we'll see the conversation that they say they're having when we watch some of these clips, which are agonizing to watch. It's agonizing to watch anybody, even if they're liberals, even if they're liberal cabinet ministers, tie themselves up into knots, into pretzels, lying about reality. It's agonizing to see anybody lie that badly, but they do. So what's really happening here, of course, CBC News spoke to 6 MPs who say they want to see cabinet agree on several measures. A major cabinet shuffle, simplified public messaging, an effort to market the Liberals as a team, and a more aggressive communications campaign contrasting the party with the Conservatives. Well, that's pretty hard to do. The latter is very hard to do when the Conservatives are the one who proposed tariffs on electric vehicles from China. And Trudeau at the time said, well, it's preposterous. We're not going to do that. And of course, yesterday, that was the real main plank of his change announcement. Yes, we're going to put tariffs on Chinese EVs. Just like polio. So how are they going to contrast their policy from the Conservatives? Sounds like they're so desperate, they're borrowing policy from the Conservatives. Just like Kamala Harris is borrowing her housing policy from the Trudeau Liberals. So it really is an absurdity what's going on here. But the sources who spoke to CBC News on the condition they not be named, God forbid they should be named because Trudeau will do something so they can speak freely. So that Trudeau has acknowledged privately what hasn't worked for his government over the past year, but hasn't done so publicly. Well, he hasn't worked for his government. In fact, literally, he hasn't worked. The man spends most of his time on vacation, doesn't read briefing notes, doesn't give a damn what's going on in the country, doesn't understand ordinary Canadians, probably doesn't know one. When he sees them, he walks the other side of the street because they're protesting. So it's a huge farce. So the Liberals are drawing inspiration from these surging Democrats. Of course, the Democrats are not surging in the U.S. That is a complete lie. All of this euphoria over Kamala Harris, the vice president, who is now the Democratic presidential nominee, is completely fabricated. There's no euphoria over her. She hasn't had a news conference since she illegally took the leadership of the party, since she illegally stole the nomination. Nobody elected her. Nobody voted for her. That's the only kind of election she can win, where nobody votes. And the whole thing is a farce. And to say that she has a great fiscal policy, which adds up to, well, I know what inflation looks like. It's when you go to the store and the price of eggs has gone up. Yeah, that's the very edge of perspicacity. But unfortunately, it doesn't add up to any kind of policy, because all she's talking about is price controls that are going to make the United States and eventually Canada, because everything the United States does affects Canada almost immediately. It's going to turn the grocery stores in the United States into barren storage houses. It's going to mean scarcity of food, goods, and perhaps even services. This is what we don't even realize. This is a recipe for catastrophe. The United States is already teetering on the brink of disaster. It's way overspent on foreign wars. It's overextended itself everywhere. It has no money for these miraculous, stupid measures, and it's pretending it does, just like Canada continues to pretend. Let's have a look at this other slide here. Multiple Liberal MPs said they want to see a major cabinet shuffle sweep out ministers who aren't delivering, like maybe 80% of them, and pulling their political weight. Well, there's a lot of overweight ones. One source said that the caucus has been coordinating a list of cabinet ministers some MPs want to see drop from cabinet. Well, I'm sure we could all put together a nice list of MPs we'd like to see dropped from cabinet. Let's have a look at some of them. I'm just going to play a bit here to remind you of Trudeau's performance yesterday. This was pathetic. This was absolutely abysmal. But, as I say over and over again, in politics, it's all about convincing people you're not really in trouble. And this is what the Trudeau Liberals are trying to do right now. They're trying to convince you that there's no storm clouds on the horizon. Even though the storm clouds aren't on the horizon, they're right above them. And it's raining hard. And they're gale force winds. But no problem. We're going to get through this. But the ship is sinking. You see, have a look at the thumbnail. The ship is sinking. They're going down with the ship. You're going to see cabinet ministers of the caliber, and I use that word haltingly, because I don't like to suggest people like Melanie Joly have anything to offer this country except shall we say, a pugnacious attitude in defiance of their own lack of abilities. But let's watch Trudeau smirk at the camera and say, no problem yesterday.
That you plan to stay on despite persistently bad polling, despite the by-election loss in Toronto that your party lost for the first time in 3 decades, because you want to continue to deliver. Isn't that what Joe Biden insisted on?
Listen, we are focused on being there for Canadians. We're focused on stepping up on support and investments that are going to leave Canadians better off for the coming years.
Told you it was a blunt question. Well, there has been discontent in the Liberal ranks, but Trudeau's cabinet ministers say they are standing by him.
We have confidence in him as the leader of our government, as the Prime Minister of Canada, and we have confidence in him as our party's leader, as the guy who is going to lead us into the next election.
I think the Prime Minister is doing a great job in making sure that he's reflecting what Canadians are saying and hearing.
I'm very hopeful and optimistic about this next election with the leader we have, with the team we have.
Loss in Toronto that you're.
All right, I was going to show you more of that CBC analysis, but I've got better things to do now. But do you see them lying through their teeth there, suggesting that, just a minute now, we're just so behind Justin Trudeau. He's doing such a wonderful job. The sycophants in this cabinet are just embarrassing to watch. But the absolute toadying to Justin Trudeau as some sort of leader after he has made a disaster of things. Imagine this. This guy is lucky to be prime minister after 9 years. He shouldn't have won in 2015. Harper should have won that election, but the Conservative campaign blew it. I was there reporting at the time for iPolitics about that campaign. The Conservatives blew that campaign totally by focusing entirely on Stephen Harper, not on the campaign, not on individual MPs, not on the work that the government had did. They focused entirely on Stephen Harper because they had people running the campaign who don't really understand politics and don't understand ordinary Canadians. And they kept saying that Trudeau is just not ready. Well, when's he going to be ready? Next year? In 6 months? Next week? Stupid campaign. Very stupid campaign. So he was lucky to win in 2015. Then he had the back-to-back minority governments, which he really squeaked by on. And now he wants to come back. You know why? Because like his father, he wants to go out with a majority government. Like Trudeau came back in 1980 after being defeated by Joe Clark in 1979. That Conservative government that lived for about 9 months. You might have been around for that. If you weren't, it was defeated over a gasoline tax, which the Liberals ironically voted against, and in Finance Minister John Crosbie's budget of that year. It was a very late, I'm trying to remember, it was probably a November budget, very late in the year, very odd. And we went to a February election. I can still remember the date, February 22nd, 1980. And Trudeau won another majority. He spent his last 4 years, of course, repatriating the Constitution and going on some world peace drive. And this is why Justin Trudeau wants to go. He doesn't want to go out as the prime minister who had to be solidified in power because the new Democratic Party kept him in power. He doesn't want to be remembered as the Liberal who couldn't do it on his own, as the Liberal prime minister who had to suck up to the NDP to get through 4 years as a government. He doesn't want to be remembered as the guy who didn't do it on his own because he is so narcissistic, he's so self-obsessed, so egotistical that he can't stand that. So he wants to go out with a majority government. And it's the only reason he's sticking around, or he thinks he's sticking around, for the next election in October 2025, if we have one. And I keep saying he'll do anything in his power to not have an election because he knows he's going to get defeated badly. It will be the largest Liberal defeat in history if Justin Trudeau remains leader of that party. The caucus knows it. That's why they want change. The cabinet knows it, even though they're lying through their teeth about how much they love him. Listen to Melanie Joly, who, of course, has been romantically linked to Justin Trudeau, even though I think he might have other irons in the fire.
Tana McCharles.
Hi, good to see you. Good, only woman asking me questions. That's good. Hi.
To Mia's point, though, I think the question wasn't so much around, can you work with any administration? We know your answer to that. I think the question we're trying to draw out from you is what you learned from watching the races south of the border, how the dynamic has been so fluid, if you had any takeaways for your own party and your own future fortunes. And I know you say you're busy working as foreign minister, of course you are, but you're also a minister in Quebec, and you would have concerns around the party's electability in all kinds of places. So talk to us about how you see the way forward in the next few months to ensure your own re-election, your party's re-election.
Well, listen, okay, I'll start with the U.S. When it comes to the U.S., we're following very, very closely. I've told you that. And, of course, we're following the dynamics on both sides. The race is very tight. And that's the only comment that I will make on what's happening in the U.S. And
In the
no,
US.
I know, Tonda, I
okay.
know, but let me finish my answer. I've given you the time to ask your question. And meanwhile, I'm engaging with the Republicans and I'm engaging with the Democrats, with the Biden administration, with the Kamala Harris team. So that's been what I've been doing behind closed doors. Meanwhile, here.
What else have you been doing behind closed doors, Melanie? I'd like to know. Have you noticed, by the way, and I'm sure you have, you're very astute viewers, that every reporter is always the same in every news conference for Trudeau or all the cabinet ministers? They're always the same hand-picked reporters. You think I could get in there? No. Not as an independent journalist or not as a senior parliamentary correspondent for the post-millennial. Do you think they would let me in? Of course not. They don't let any independent or new media in to these news conferences. It's the same reporters. But even those same reporters, like Tondra McCharles, are asking the impertinent questions now, the difficult questions. The Liberals are saying, oh my God, we can't answer. You shouldn't be asking questions like that, Tondra. But here she goes, continuing to lie through her teeth.
Of course, we're connected to what people think. Of course, I've been connecting with people in my own writing. I've been door knocking also while being foreign minister in La Salle Verdun. And I'm confident that we can win the by-election in La Salle Verdun. Meanwhile, are people preoccupied about affordability, housing? Of course they are. And we're not disconnected from that. So we need to work on it, and we need to be able to provide the hope that is necessary in these times where a lot of people are feeling lots of anxiety.
So, yeah, just like Kamala Harris, I know what inflation is, and the great Melanie Joly, yeah, I know we have a problem with affordability.
Is that the only problem you see that lies ahead, trying to prove to Canadians you can deliver results? Is that the only thing you think is the change thing that's needed, that people are
Well, listen,
looking for?
I think when it comes to politics, it's all about trust and whether people trust the work you're doing as a government.
Do you trust this woman? Do you trust the Trudeau government? She's hit the nail on the head for once in her life. Yes, it's about trust. And Canadians don't trust you. They don't like you. And by the way, please like the station before we get to the end. Don't go away, because you're going to love the Randy Boissonneau clip at the end of this program. Don't go away. You want to see this.
And I think the challenges we're facing are real. And we're not the only country facing these challenges, but we have to be better at it to make sure that we're delivering results, period. And so the proof is in the pudding.
The proof is in the pudding. Aha, is that an old Quebecois slogan? Is that interesting? She says, period. It's over for you, Melanie, period. Because even Quebecers can see through the slothful waste of time government that eats up your money, eats up taxpayers' money, and wastes enormous amounts of time navel-gazing at these caucus and cabinet retreats, coming up with absolutely nothing except observations about what's wrong with the country. There's no change in this retreat. There was never any intention of having change. The only intention was to somehow present a unified front, that these cabinet ministers just love Justin Trudeau. Let's listen to another one of your favorites, Immigration Minister Mark Miller. This is the guy who's systematically destroying Canada through mass migration and who really would love an open border, because his immigration cap doesn't even take effect until after the Liberals are defeated in the next election.
Reflecting that you've been doing on the state of the party and what you want to see change moving forward?
Not with you guys in public. That's for damn sure. But sure, look, I think we have to have this. Tonda's laughing.
We're all laughing at you, Mark.
The reality is we have to have these conversations behind closed doors. It's important for the health of the party, the cohesion that we have in cabinet in particular. We have a number of political conversations coming up, and I expect them to be quite robust. Prime Minister has been quite active throughout the summer, speaking individually to caucus members to talk about their challenges, where they see the country going, whether they want to run during the next election. I think that's exceedingly important. As a leader, that's what you would expect of them. But we also have our points of view as cabinet ministers, and we make them known, but just not in public.
Yeah, you don't make it known. So there he goes, once again, smiling like, you don't believe a word I'm saying, do you? You can't possibly be buying this, but I'm going to do my best to lie and convince you. Now we're getting to the best. Please stick around for the conclusion of this broadcast, because you're going to love this. Nobody that I saw this morning has found this Randy Boissonneau clip. Now, Randy Boissonneau, this is the guy who clearly would appear to be in conflict of interest as a cabinet minister who still has his hands on a consulting firm. And of course, you know all about the other Randy that didn't exist, and we'll be updating you on that in a minute. But this is a man who's so self-obsessed. He doesn't really want to talk about Trudeau's leadership. He mentions it. He wants to talk about what a victim he is. I'm the victim here. Randy, cue ball Randy Boissonneau is the victim. And of course, he's been assaulted by hateful people all summer. It's just incredible to watch. Let's have a look.
I've been reflecting on the summer on personal attacks in politics. I don't know if you know that there was a very nasty car parked outside of my house for over 6 weeks that was affiliated with, it was definitely conservatives. They would switch their cars every 3-4 days to comply with bylaws, hateful slogans on the car. The police did their job. That car's no longer there, but we've got rising rhetoric in this country that is putting at risk good people being in politics, and we're in full recruitment mode. I want to see excellent people of all genders, of all races and backgrounds in politics. And I think we all have a responsibility to make sure that we're letting people know that this is a noble profession, that we're here in the service of Canadians. And I want to make sure that hopeful, optimistic sentiment of Canadians continues, because Canadians are hopeful people. And look, I got to say it because I've been watching this summer, and Sean's a good-looking guy, but I got to tell you, the obsession that Per Poilievre has with this guy is just weird. And I don't know what's on with that, but weird. Enough already. And quite frankly, let people do their jobs. He's the best housing minister we've had in a generation, and quite frankly, I think you're going to see us build more housing than ever before, because that's the plan that we've laid out, and Sean's at that helm. And I think we got to talk with people on the doors.
We're going to pause it there, because how can you allow this man to go on talking such nonsense? Is he an example of the excellent candidates he's hoping to recruit into federal politics? Obviously, he thinks so. If this scoundrel is representative of the excellent candidates, God help this country. God help any democracy. Because this man is not fit to serve as a cabinet minister. He's not even fit to serve as a dog catcher, and he shouldn't even be in the House of Commons. Why the idiots in Edmonton Centre keep putting this idiot back in? Well, they haven't done it too often. I predict they're going to have some common sense in this next election and turf this idiot on his fat behind. He needs to get out of the House of Commons and out of cabinet. He shouldn't even be at this cabinet retreat. He should have been shuffled out weeks ago, because he's immersed in a scandal so deep, and we're going to remind you about that in a minute, what that scandal is. But what does he talk about here? Hateful. What was it? What was on the sign that was hateful? He wants you to assume it was some kind of homophobic, because this is as far as I know, the only openly homosexual member of the cabinet. And he wants you to think, it was terrible, homophobic, slurs. He wants you to think that. So he doesn't tell you what the hateful thing. What do you bet it was about him being unfit to be a minister because of his apparent conflict of interest? But with also belonging to a consulting firm at the same time he's a cabinet minister, handing out government contracts. Do you think maybe that's what he considers hateful? But he's not going to say that. He wants you to believe something. He wants you to believe this is all about this hateful speech, hateful. And this is the way this guy continues in politics. And he's got the nerve to suggest that it's our problem. Denial. Delusion. Can this man not understand that he's the problem? It's not other people. God, we need to kick this guy out so badly. It's outrageous. They get away with this, and they're not even contrite. They're not even the least bit repentant. They don't even seek forgiveness. They don't want forgiveness because they don't think they've done anything wrong. They think they can get away with this for the rest of their political lives, and we should like it. They want the sanction of the victim, as Ayn Rand always said, if you know Ayn Rand. These woke politicians, these idiot ideologues like this man, Boissonneau, they want the sanction of the victim. And here's at the end of the news conference, he's asked, how do you know it was conservatives?
Because the person that had it had a conservative sign on the actual decals that were inside his car. He literally took an Axe the Tax sign, Conservative Party, put it on the inside of his window, and there was other hateful rhetoric on the car as well.
What was the hateful rhetoric, Randy? Once again, doesn't describe what the hateful rhetoric is. And he says the Conservative Party put the sign on the window. How does he know that? How does he have a clue in hell who put the sign? He doesn't. He's just, I just know it because they had an Axe the Tax pamphlet there. And that means it's definitely an emissary of Pierre Poilievre, an official emissary of the Conservative Party, put all that in his car. Yeah. And this is, and it's just hateful rhetoric. Once again, what's the hateful rhetoric, Randy? Hey, cue ball, what's the hateful rhetoric? Is it about your inability to be an honest employment minister? Is that hateful to you? Let's remind ourselves why Randy Boissonneau is despised by Canadians.
Stephen Anderson, an Edmonton man who used to be business partners with Randy Boissonneau, Canada's employment minister.
Who's Randy?
Randy, as I said in my opening statement, was an autocorrect.
But how many times do you say it? 9 references to Randy? Every one of those 9 is an autocorrect?
Yes.
How many people work for Global Health Imports? What's the total staff complement?
121. The Gowie Group had a contract in place with Global Health Imports and Global Healthcare Solutions. The business hasn't been operating since 2022.
Unbelievable.
As I have said, I will fulsomely give you all the information in regard to Randy to this committee within camera. I admit that I did panic when she said, is there another Randy?
So you lied?
To the reporter, I did, yes.
You are a self-admitted liar. You lack any credibility whatsoever.
And that, my dear viewers, is why Canadians despise Randy Boissonneau, employment minister and member of parliament for Edmonton Centre. It's nothing to do with his private life. It's got everything to do with his public life. That's why, because he can't manage his public life ethically or honestly or properly. That's why people don't like him. And maybe that's what this hateful rhetoric on the car was all about. And if so, it wasn't really hateful. It was honest criticism, which Randy Boissonneau can't stand, and neither can anybody in that Liberal cabinet. They don't want honest criticism. They just think you should keep taking it and liking it for the rest of their political lives. And they serve not at your discretion, but at their pleasure. That's the Liberal motto. We serve at our pleasure, not at the discretion of taxpayers. That should be the Trudeau government's slogan. That should be the epitaph on the Trudeau government's gravestone, because that's what this government's all about. Anyway, I've gone a little over time today. I try to keep these under 30 minutes. And I'm just under 30 minutes. Thank you so much for watching today. It's been a pleasure talking to you about the issues that matter. I try to bring you the news, all the news that you need to know every day. And remember, keep resolving to resist, because we can do it. We can beat totalitarianism. We can save free speech in this country. We can save our democracy if we work together and we fight honestly, proudly and effectively. Thank you so much for watching. I'm David KRAYDEN. I'll be